You woke up this morning. That alone means something. Not everyone who closed their eyes last night opened them again. And yet here you are, still breathing, still present, still moving through a world that has not always been kind to you. But before you rush into the noise of the day, before the demands pile up and the voices around you begin to drown out the quiet things, I need you to stop for just a moment. Because something happened this morning that you may not have noticed. Something shifted in the unseen, and it has everything to do with you. You are tired. You do not need to pretend otherwise. You have been carrying something heavy for a long time now, and the weight of it has settled into your bones in a way that sleep does not always fix. You wake up and the weariness is already there, waiting for you before your feet even touch the floor. There are mornings when you lie still for a few extra seconds, not because you are lazy, but because some part of you is trying to gather enough strength just to face the next 24 hours. And you do it. Every single time you do it. But it costs you something that no one around you seems to see. You feel small sometimes. You feel like the life you are living does not match the life you sense somewhere deep inside yourself. Like there is a version of you that is waiting just beyond a door you cannot seem to find the key to. You look at where you are, and you look at where you feel you should be, and the gap between those two places can feel like a wound. You have prayed about it. You have waited on it. You have cried over it in rooms where no one could hear you, and you have smiled in public as though everything is fine, because explaining the depth of what you feel would take more words than most people have the patience to receive. And here is the paradox that I need you to sit with right now. You are called. You are deeply, undeniably, irrevocably called. Not in some vague and general sense. Not as a comforting idea thrown out to make you feel better on a hard day, but called in the most specific and intentional way that heaven knows how to call a person. You were chosen before you were formed. You were set apart before you drew your first breath. There is an assignment on your life that was written before the foundations of this world were laid, and that assignment has not been canceled. Not by your failures, not by your fears, not by the seasons where your faith felt more like a flicker than a flame. But here is what makes your story so different from the stories of those who were never chosen for anything that costs something. The calling does not come with comfort as its first companion. The calling comes with weight. It comes with a kind of loneliness that is almost impossible to explain to someone who has not felt it. It comes with seasons of confusion, seasons where everything you thought you understood about your own life gets rearranged in ways that feel more like loss than like growth. You look around and you wonder why it is so hard for you when others seem to move through life with so much ease. You wonder why the road you are on has so many stones when you have given so much of yourself, when you have tried to do what is right, when you have kept showing up, even when showing up was the hardest thing you could imagine doing. And I want to tell you something that you need to hear, not just in your mind, but deep in the place where you make decisions about who you are and what your life means. The weakness you feel right now is not a contradiction of your calling. It is the very soil in which your calling is growing. The tiredness is not evidence that God has forgotten you. It is evidence that you have been in a battle that ordinary people do not get invited into. You have been pressed in places that only the chosen get pressed, because God does not spend that kind of refining fire on someone He has no plans for. A potter does not spend hours shaping clay he intends to leave on a shelf. He shapes what he intends to use. You are being shaped right now, in this season, in this weariness, in this paradox of feeling both deeply called and deeply insufficient. You're being shaped into the exact form that your destiny requires. And what looks to you like falling apart is actually the most precise and careful construction you have ever been through. Nothing about what you are experiencing right now is happening outside of the knowledge of the one who called you. He sees every sleepless night. He sees every moment. You chose faith when everything in front of you argued for giving up. He sees the tears you swallowed so you could keep moving. He sees the prayers you whispered when you had nothing left to pray with. And he is not unmoved by any of it. There is a truth in the ancient words that was written for people exactly like you. People who were tired and still trusting. People who were weak and still walking. People who looked at the weight of what they were carrying and wondered if they would make it, and then took one more step anyway. The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 9, carries these words, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Read those words again slowly, not as a verse you have memorized, but as a word spoken directly into the specific place in your chest where the ache lives. His power is not made perfect in your strength. It is made perfect in your weakness. Which means that the very thing you have been ashamed of, the very insufficiency you have been trying to hide, the very trembling that you thought disqualified you, is actually the exact condition in which the power of heaven moves most freely through a human life. You are not too weak for what God has called you to. You are precisely weak enough for Him to get the glory when He brings it to pass. This morning, when you woke up tired, when you open your eyes into another day that asks more of you than you feel you have to give, you proved something. You proved that the faith inside you is not dependent on how you feel. You proved that your yes to God is not a fair weather commitment that disappears when the sky turns gray. You prove that you are still here, still in it, still choosing to get up and move forward, even when every natural instinct in your body told you that you were not. Enough for this day. And heaven noticed. Heaven always notices the ones who keep going when it would be so much easier to stop. If you are watching this right now, and something in these words is landing in a place that feels personal, if you are feeling that quiet recognition that this message found you on purpose, I want you to do something right now. Type 999 in the comments. Let that number be your declaration. Let it be the way you say out loud, even in a small and digital way, that you are here, that you are chosen, that you are tired, but you are still standing, and that you believe something is about to shift in your life. 999. Type it right now and watch what happens in the days that follow, because you are not watching this by accident, and you did not make it to this moment by chance. You are a chosen one, not because you are perfect, not because you have never doubted, not because your faith has never wavered or your heart has never broken. You are chosen because before you were born, before you had a name, before you had a story, God looked across the landscape of all of human history, and He pointed to the exact coordinates of your life, and He said, that one is mine. And nothing that has happened since then, not the hardest years, not the deepest wounds, not the longest silences, not the moments when you could not feel His presence at all, none of it has ever changed that declaration. You are still that one. You have always been that one. And this morning, you proved it again. You are still here. And that matters more than you know. The proof of your faith is not found in the moments when everything was going well, when the prayers were answered quickly, and the blessings were visible, and the path ahead was clear. The proof of your faith is found in mornings exactly like this one, when the weight is still there, when the answers have not yet come, when you are running on something that does not feel like strength, but keeps moving anyway. That something has a name. It is called grace, and it has been holding you together in ways you will not fully understand until you are standing on the other side of this season, looking back at how far you have come. There is a man in Scripture whose story I want to bring to you today, not as a distant historical figure, not as a character in a religious text that feels removed from the reality of your life, but as a mirror held up to the exact place you are standing right now. His name is Elijah. And if you have heard his name before, I want you to set aside everything you think you know about him for a moment. Because the part of his story that most people rush past is the part that was written specifically for you in this season. Elijah was a chosen one. There is no softer way to say it and no more accurate way to describe him. He walked in a level of divine authority that most people in his generation could not comprehend. He stood alone on a mountain called Carmel and called fire down from heaven in front of hundreds of prophets who served a false god, and the fire came. It came completely and immediately and undeniably. The altar was consumed. The water in the trench was evaporated, and an entire nation that had been wavering between two opinions fell on their faces and declared that the Lord alone is God. That was Elijah. That was the level of power and purpose and divine backing that rested on this man's life. And then something happened that the religious version of his story often skips over too quickly, because it is uncomfortable and because it does not fit the image we prefer to have of great people of faith. Immediately after the greatest victory of his life, immediately after the most dramatic and undeniable demonstration of divine power that his generation had ever witnessed, Elijah ran. He ran in fear. He ran so far and so fast that he eventually collapsed under a juniper tree in the wilderness and asked God to let him die. He said, "It is enough." He did not dress it up. He did not perform strength he did not have. He laid down in the dirt under a tree in the middle of nowhere and said out loud to the God who had just moved through him in fire, "I have had enough. Take my life." I need you to sit with that image for a moment, because it is one of the most honest pictures in all of Scripture of what it looks like to be deeply chosen and deeply human at the same time. Here is a man who had just watched heaven answer his prayer in the most spectacular way imaginable, and within days he was lying on the ground in total exhaustion, afraid, convinced that he was the only one left who still cared about the things of God, feeling completely and utterly alone. The victory did not protect him from the crash. The anointing did not make him immune to the weight. The fire from heaven did not prevent him from hitting the floor. And if you have ever wondered why you feel the way you feel right now, after the seasons of faith and the prayers you have prayed and the things you have believed God for, after the times you chose to trust when everything around you gave you every reason to walk away, if you have ever wondered why the tiredness came back even after you thought you had pushed through it, the story of Elijah is your answer. Being chosen does not make you exempt from exhaustion. Carrying an anointing does not make you immune to the crash that follows intense seasons of spiritual warfare. You are not weak because you are worn out. You are human. And God knows exactly what to do with a human who is honest enough to lay down and say, "I have had enough." Because here is what God did not do when Elijah hit the floor. He did not rebuke him. He did not remind him of the fire on the mountain and ask why he was now hiding in the wilderness. He did not compare him to someone else who seemed to be handling things better. He did not withdraw his presence or revoke the calling or decide that someone more emotionally stable would be a better candidate for the assignment. What God did was send an angel, and the angel did not come with a theological lecture or a motivational speech. The angel came with bread and water. He touched Elijah and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. That is the tenderness of God toward the chosen who are worn out. Not condemnation, not comparison, bread, water, rest, and a reminder that the journey continues. You are in that moment right now. You are under the juniper tree. You may not have named it that way. You may have called it burnout, or depression, or confusion, or just a really hard season. But the feeling is the same. The weight is the same. The quiet desperation that sits in your chest at 3 in the morning when you cannot explain to anyone why you feel so far from the version of yourself you thought you would be by now. That feeling is something Elijah knew, and God met him there, not on the mountain, not in the fire, in the wilderness, under the tree, in the dirt. God met him where he actually was, not where he was supposed to be. And God is meeting you here, right now, in this exact moment. Not when you get yourself together. Not when you figure out the next step. Not when you feel strong enough to deserve his attention. Right here, in the middle of your weariness, in the paradox of being called while feeling broken, God is present. He has not left. He has not looked away. He has not decided that your exhaustion disqualifies you from his plans. He has sent bread. He has sent water. And this message, these words reaching you today, is part of that provision. You did not stumble onto this content by accident. You were directed here. And the same God who knew where Elijah was lying in the wilderness knows exactly where you are sitting, or standing, or lying right now. The book of 1 Kings, chapter 19, verse 5, carries these words. As he lay and slept under a juniper tree, an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. Arise. Not perform, not pretend, not manufacture strength you do not currently possess. Arise, which means get up from where you are, not from where you wish you were. Get up from the real place, the actual ground, the honest floor of your current experience, and receive what God has prepared for you in this next season. The bread is already there. The provision is already in place. The strength for the next leg of the journey has already been made available. You simply need to arise and receive it. Elijah did not stay under that tree. He ate, he drank, he rested, and then he arose and went in the strength of that meal for 40 days. One encounter with God's provision carried him further than he could have imagined when he was lying in the dirt, thinking it was over. And what God is about to release into your life in this season is going to carry you in the same way. Further than fear told you was possible. Further than exhaustion suggested you could go. Further than the version of yourself that laid down under the tree could have dreamed from that angle on the ground. You are not finished. You have not been forgotten. The wilderness is not your destination. It is a passage, and on the other side of it, God has something waiting for you that required exactly this season to prepare you to receive it. The Elijah who stood on Mount Horeb after the wildernesses was not the same Elijah who ran from Jezebel. The fire had burned away something. The wilderness had stripped something. The exhaustion had emptied something that needed to be emptied so that something greater could be poured in. And the same thing is happening in you right now, whether you can feel it or not. Your faith this morning is not small. It is enormous. Because faith that holds on when it has every reason to let go is not ordinary faith. It is the kind of faith that heaven recognizes as rare. It is the kind of faith that Elijah carried not on the mountain in the fire, but under the tree in the dark. And it is the kind of faith that God never walks past without stopping to meet. You have made it further than you know. The road behind you is longer than you give yourself credit for. And the ground you are standing on right now, even if it feels uncertain beneath your feet, is ground that was purchased by every hard day you chose to keep going. Every night you held on to something you could not see. Every morning you got up when lying still would have been so much easier. Elijah was still moving too, even when he did not fully understand where the road was leading. He had eaten the bread, he had drunk the water, and he had risen from the ground under the juniper tree. Not because everything was suddenly clear, but because the provision was real, and the call on his life was stronger than his fear. That is the posture of a chosen one in motion. Not certainty, not comfort, just one step and then another, sustained by something that comes from beyond themselves. And as Elijah moved through that wilderness, something was happening inside him that he could not yet see from the inside. The stripping away of the noise, the removal of the crowd, the silencing of the applause, and the spectacle of the mountain, all of it was making space for something deeper. Because God was not going to speak to Elijah the next time in fire. He was going to speak in a still small voice. And you cannot hear a still small voice when you are surrounded by everything that has been filling the space around you. The wilderness was not punishment. It was preparation. God was tuning Elijah's inner ear to receive a frequency that the noise of his previous season had been drowning out. And this is where something remarkable begins to come into focus. Something that the ancient story of Elijah and the discoveries of modern science are pointing toward from two completely different directions, but arriving at the same destination. Because what God was doing in Elijah in that wilderness, the deep internal recalibration, the quieting of the outer noise so that the inner signal could be received clearly, is something that researchers who study the human brain have been trying to understand and measure for decades. And what they have found is extraordinary. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic language dressed up to sound spiritual. Researchers who study the brain under conditions of deep insight, creative breakthrough, and what some scientists describe as states of expanded awareness have found that certain brainwave patterns appear consistently in people who are operating at their highest levels of clarity, creativity, and purpose. Scientists call it gamma, the gamma wave vibrating at the highest frequency range measurable in the human brain is associated with moments of profound insight, with what researchers describe as eureka states, with the kind of thinking that solves problems that ordinary mental states cannot reach. And alongside gamma, there is a frequency called theta, vibrating between 4 and 8 cycles per second, which is the frequency of deep creativity, of intuitive knowing, of the kind of learning that bypasses the analytical filters of the conscious mind and goes straight into the core of who you are. Here is what is significant about these frequencies in the context of your life and your calling. Children operate in theta almost constantly. It is why children learn so quickly, absorb so deeply, and move through the world with a kind of creative fearlessness that most adults have lost. And the people throughout history who have been described as geniuses, as visionaries, as individuals who seem to access something beyond ordinary human capacity, these people showed elevated gamma activity at precisely the moments of their greatest breakthroughs. The question that researchers began to ask was whether these frequencies could be intentionally restored in adults who had lost access to them through the accumulated weight of stress, responsibility, fear, and the relentless noise of modern life. A neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers trained at MIT and connected to research programs associated with NASA, spent more than 30 years trying to answer that question. What he discovered, after thousands of days of study and research, was that the brain has not lost the ability to access these frequencies. It has simply been buried under layers of interference. And more importantly, he discovered that the brain could be guided back into these states through a precise and carefully designed sequence of audio frequencies, a process called brainwave entrainment. The brain, it turns out, has a natural tendency to synchronize with external frequencies it is exposed to. And when the right frequencies are delivered in the right sequence, the brain follows. It aligns. It recalibrates. It begins to operate again at the level it was always designed to reach. The result of Dr. Rivers' research is something called the genius wave. It is a 7-minute audio track engineered with binaural beats and isochronic tones calculated to guide the brain gently but precisely into the theta and gamma states that are associated with creativity, clarity, accelerated learning, and the kind of deep intuitive insight that you have been praying to access. 7 minutes, that is all. Not hours of meditation, not years of training, not techniques that require special skill or spiritual discipline that feels out of reach on a hard day. 7 minutes of listening, ideally with headphones, and the brain begins to do what it was always designed to do. And before you dismiss this as something too simple to be real, I want to tell you about someone whose story might sound familiar. A woman who had been carrying the weight of financial pressure for years, who had prayed about her situation, who had done everything she knew how to do, and who had begun to wonder in her quietest moments whether she was simply not smart enough or creative enough to find a way through. She started listening to the genius wave every morning. Within weeks, she described something shifting in the way her mind was working. Solutions she had not been able to see before began to appear. Connections she had missed started becoming obvious, and within a few months, her income had increased in ways she could not fully attribute to any single decision, but to a general sharpening of her thinking, her clarity, and her ability to take decisive action. Another person, a man who had struggled with focus for most of his adult life, described the experience as finally feeling like the fog had lifted. He said that for the first time in years, he could sit with a problem and actually think it through to a solution rather than watching his mind scatter in 12 directions at once. These are not extraordinary people with extraordinary circumstances. These are people who sound a great deal like you. Now I know what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing, and you are right. It is not nothing. That is a real amount of money, and I am not going to pretend otherwise or rush past that reality as though it does not matter. Your resources are real, and your decisions about them deserve respect. But I want you to consider what you are actually being offered here. You are being offered a tool backed by more than 3 decades of neuroscientific research that is designed to restore your brain to the frequency of its highest functioning. You are being offered access to the mental and creative clarity that your calling requires. And you are being offered it with a 90-day money-back guarantee, which means that if you try it for 3 months and you do not experience any meaningful shift, you pay nothing. The risk is not on you. It is on the research. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment and the description below this video, it is available today for just $39. That link is the only legitimate source. There are imitations and unauthorized versions circulating in other places, and I want to protect you from wasting your money on something that is not the genuine product. The only place to access the real Genius Wave is through that single link in the pinned comment and description. And because this discounted price is part of a limited offer connected to a specific window of availability, I cannot guarantee that the $39 price will still be there the next time you come back to look. The number of people who can access this offer at this price is not unlimited. If something in you is responding to this right now, do not delay that response. Your mind was created to operate at a frequency that matches your destiny, and the tools to restore that frequency are available to you right now. And now, having placed that tool in your hands, having shown you what is available for the mind that God has given you, let us return to the deeper current that has been running beneath everything said so far. Because the science and the spiritual are not two separate rivers. They are the same water moving through different landscapes. The clarity that Dr. Rivers spent 30 years trying to restore in the human brain is the same clarity that God was rebuilding in Elijah during 40 days of wilderness walking. The frequency that researchers identify as gamma is the same inner sharpness that the chosen have always carried when they are walking in alignment with their purpose. And now, with your mind beginning to open to what is possible, there is something even more important that needs to be spoken over your life. Elijah kept walking. After the bread, after the water, after the rest under the juniper tree, he arose and walked for 40 days until he reached a mountain called Horeb. And at Horeb, something happened that changed the entire direction of his life. Not through fire this time, not through the dramatic and visible power that had defined his ministry on Mount Carmel, but through something far more intimate and far more specific. God asked him a question. He said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And in that question was not accusation, but invitation. It was an invitation to be completely honest about where he was, what he was feeling, and what he believed about his own situation. And Elijah answered with everything. He poured out the fear and the exhaustion and the sense of isolation and the feeling that he was the only one left who still carried the weight of his calling with any seriousness. He held nothing back. And God did not argue with his feelings. He did not correct his emotions or tell him that his perception was wrong. He simply redirected him. He said, "Go, return on your way." There was work still to be done. There were people still to be anointed. There was a successor named Elisha who needed to be found and prepared. The calling had not expired just because Elijah had reached his limit. The assignment had not been reassigned just because he had hit the floor. God simply said, "You are not finished. Now go." You are not finished either. And I want you to receive those words not as religious encouragement, designed to make you feel better in the moment, but as a genuine and specific declaration over your life. The assignment that was placed on you before you were born has not been handed to someone else, because this season has been hard. The door that has your name on it has not been given to someone more qualified while you were lying under the juniper tree. God does not reassign the callings He places on people simply because those people go through seasons of weakness and wilderness. He waits, He provides, He restores, and then He says, "Now go." There is a particular kind of trial that chosen ones face that is unlike the ordinary difficulties of human life. It is a trial that is specifically designed to test not just your endurance, but your identity. It is a trial that asks the deepest and most threatening question a human being can be asked, which is, are you really who God says you are? Because there will always be circumstances, seasons, and voices that present themselves as evidence that the answer to that question is no. There will always be situations that look, from the outside, like proof that you were mistaken about your calling, that the dream was just a dream, that the sense of destiny you have carried was just the wishful thinking of someone who needed to believe they mattered. Daniel understood this kind of trial. He was a young man taken from everything he knew, stripped of his name, his culture, his homeland, and placed inside a system that was designed to remake him into something that served a foreign king's agenda. And yet something inside Daniel could not be remade. Something in him held, not because he was performing strength he did not have, but because he had settled something at the level of identity that no external circumstance could reach. He knew who he was. He knew whose he was, and that knowing became the foundation that every trial had to stand on before it could touch him. And every trial found that foundation immovable. You have that same foundation. It was laid before you were born. It was sealed by a covenant that was not initiated by you, and therefore cannot be broken by you. The tiredness you feel, the confusion of this season, the moments when you have questioned everything, including yourself, none of that has reached the foundation. The foundation is intact, and just as Daniel moved through the fire of his trials not untouched but undestroyable, you are moving through yours. The flames are real. The pressure is real. But the foundation beneath you is more real than any of it. The book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, carries these words. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. When, not if. The scripture does not promise you a life without fire. It promises you a God who walks into the fire with you. And the word consume is important here. The flame does not get to consume you. It does not get to take what is essential. It does not get to burn away the calling, the identity, the covenant, the destiny. It may burn away some things. In fact, it will. The wilderness always burns away something. But what it burns away is never the thing that matters most. What it burns away is the weight you were never meant to carry. The false versions of yourself that you built to survive seasons that required something different from who you truly are. The layers of fear and performance and self-protection that accumulated over years of trying to make it through without getting hurt. What is left after the fire is pure. What is left after the wilderness is essential. What is left after the trial is the real you, the chosen you, the you that was always underneath everything else, waiting to be uncovered. And that version of you is stronger than anything you have faced. It is more capable than anything you have been asked to do. It is more than sufficient for the assignment that is waiting on the other side of this season. Elijah did not return from the wilderness the same man who ran into it. The encounter with God in the still small voice, the question that invited him into radical honesty, the redirection toward his next assignment. All of it had worked something in him that the fire on Mount Carmel had not yet produced. The most spectacular moments of your life are not always the moments that produce the deepest formation. Sometimes it is the quiet wilderness, the bread under the tree, the still small voice in the cave. That does the work that the fire could not. You are being formed right now, in the quiet, in the waiting, in the mornings that feel like nothing is happening even as everything is being prepared. And the formation that is happening in you right now is not incidental. It is not a detour from your destiny. It is the very process by which your destiny is being made ready to receive you. God is not wasting a single day of this season. He is not allowing a single tear to fall without purpose. He is not permitting a single night of confusion to pass without using it to build something in you that could not have been built any other way. You are a chosen one in the middle of your formation. And the God who called Elijah out of the wilderness and back into his assignment is calling you out of yours. Not because the wilderness is over necessarily, but because the work it needed to do in you has reached a place where the next step is possible. And the next step is always possible for the one who is chosen, because the one who called you is faithful, and he does not call people to assignments he has not already made provision for. And yet the silence that follows a season of testing is never truly empty. You have just walked through the fire with Daniel. You have just stood at the entrance of the cave with Elijah. And something in you has been rearranged by the journey, not broken, rearranged. There is a difference between the two that matters enormously in this moment. Broken things cannot function. Rearranged things function differently than they did before, more precisely, more purposefully, more aligned with the specific shape of what they were always meant to carry. And the rearranging that has happened in you through everything you have faced is not damage. It is the careful and intentional work of a God who knows exactly what configuration your life needs to be in before he can pour into it what he has been preparing to pour. So as you move forward from this place, from the fire and the cave and the question and the redirection, there is one more terrain that the chosen one must learn to navigate with faith rather than fear. It is the terrain that comes after the dramatic moments have passed, after the angel has come and gone, after the bread has been eaten and the water drunk, after the voice has spoken and the assignment has been clarified. It is the terrain of the aftermath, the quiet that follows the encounter, the space between the word received and the word fulfilled. It is the silence before the breakthrough, and it is where we are going next. There is a silence that chosen ones know that other people do not fully understand. It is not the peaceful silence of a quiet morning or the restful silence of a mind at ease. It is a different kind of silence altogether. It is the silence of unanswered prayer. It is the silence of a heaven that seems to have gone still precisely at the moment when you needed it most to speak. It is the silence that settles in after you have done everything right, after you have prayed with everything you have, after you have trusted and believed and held on and refused to let go, and then looked up to find that the sky above you is completely, utterly, and devastatingly quiet. You know this silence. You may be living inside it right now. And if you are, I want you to know that you are not the first chosen one to find themselves standing in it. And the silence is not what it appears to be. It never is. Because the silence of God is not the absence of God. It is the strategy of God. And there is a profound difference between those two things that will change everything about how you move through this season if you can receive it. Elijah knew this silence too. After the wind that broke the rocks, after the earthquake, after the fire, the scripture says that God was not in any of those things. And then, after all of it, there came a still small voice, a sound of sheer silence, as some translations render it. And it was in that silence, after all the drama and the spectacle and the power, that God chose to speak most personally and most directly to the man he had chosen. The silence was not the end of the conversation, was the beginning of the most intimate part of it. God stripped away every dramatic external signal until there was nothing left but the quietest possible frequency, and then he spoke into it. This is what God does in the silences of the chosen. He strips away the noise. He removes the external confirmations that you have been leaning on. He takes away the visible signs and the felt presence and the emotional certainty, not to abandon you, but to train you to hear at a frequency you have not yet learned to access. Because there is a depth of divine communication that can only be received in silence. There is a level of instruction, of direction, of intimate knowing that cannot be transmitted through the spectacular. It requires stillness. It requires the kind of internal quiet that only comes when everything else has been removed. And this is deeply uncomfortable for the chosen one who has been waiting. Because silence feels like nothing is happening. Silence feels like being forgotten. Silence feels, in the worst moments of it, like confirmation of every fear you have ever had about yourself, about your calling, about whether any of it was ever real. The enemy knows this. He knows that silence is one of the most powerful weapons he has access to, not because silence itself is his weapon, but because he knows how to use it. He knows how to take a season of divine strategic stillness and whisper into it until it sounds like divine rejection. He knows how to take the pause before the breakthrough and make it feel like the announcement of a permanent ending. But here is what the enemy cannot do. He cannot change what is actually happening in the silence. He can only change how it feels. And feelings, as real and as powerful as they are not always accurate reporters of spiritual reality. What feels like abandonment in the silence is actually preparation. What feels like delay is actually construction. What feels like God looking away is actually God leaning in closer than he has ever been, working at a level of your life that is too deep for you to see from the surface, laying foundations that will not be visible until the season turns, and you look back and understand what was being built while you were standing in the quiet, wondering if anything was happening at all. Consider what happens in the natural world before something significant emerges. The seed that is buried in the ground does not look like it is doing anything. From the surface, there is nothing to see. There is no visible progress, no measurable growth, no confirmation that anything is alive beneath the soil. But underground, in the dark, in the silence, everything is happening. The seed is breaking open. The root system is establishing itself. The structure that will eventually hold up. Everything visible is being built in the place where no one can watch it happen. And then one day, without any announcement, a shoot appears above the ground, and what seemed like nothing reveals itself to have been everything all along. You are in the underground right now. You are in the part of the process that looks like nothing from the outside, the part that feels like silence and stillness and the absence of movement. But you are not underground because you are dead. You are underground because you are being grown. And the root system that God is establishing in you during this silence is the thing that will hold you upright. When the season turns and the weight of what he is bringing into your life requires a foundation that could not have been built any other way. Elijah did not understand the silence either, not fully, not in the moment of it. He went and stood at the entrance of the cave and he waited. And the waiting was not passive. The waiting was itself an act of faith, because to wait on God when everything in you wants to run, to stay in the place of silence, when every instinct is screaming that you should do something, anything, to break it, is one of the most courageous and faith-filled things a chosen one can do. Waiting is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the active and intentional choice to trust that what God is doing in the silence is more important than anything you could manufacture by breaking it. And in that waiting, something was being settled in Elijah that had not yet been settled. The question God asked him, "What are you doing here?" was not only an invitation to honesty. It was an invitation to stillness. It was an invitation to stop running. Stop hiding, stop trying to figure it out, and simply be present in the silence, long enough to hear what could not be heard any other way. And when Elijah finally got still enough, the voice came. Not in the earthquake, not in the fire, in silence. The voice is coming for you too. It is already moving in your direction. It has already been set in motion. The word that is going to reorient everything. The direction that is going to make sense of the confusion. The answer that is going to resolve the question you have been carrying for longer than you want to admit. It is already on its way. And the silence you are standing in right now is not the obstacle to receiving it. The silence is the very condition that makes it possible to hear it. when it arrives. The Book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 25 and 26, carries these words: "The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Quietly. That word is important. Not frantically, not desperately, not with the kind of anxious striving that tries to force an answer before it is ready to come. Quietly, which means with a settled confidence that the one you are waiting for is worth waiting for, that the salvation he is bringing is real, that the silence is not the end of the story, but a necessary chapter in it. And quietness is not easy for the chosen one who is tired and waiting and wondering. But it is possible, because the same God who is asking you to wait quietly is the same God who is sustaining you in the waiting. He does not ask you to produce stillness from your own resources. He asks you to receive it from His. You are not being punished by this silence. You are being prepared by it. You are not being ignored in this waiting. You are being positioned in it. And the God who has been with you through every loud and dramatic season of your life has not gone anywhere now that the season has gone quiet. He is here. He is closer in this silence than He has been in many of the louder moments. And what He is preparing to speak into your life when the silence breaks is going to be worth every day you chose to stay and wait and trust rather than run. Stay, be still, let the silence do its work. Because the chosen one who learns to hear in the quiet becomes the chosen one who cannot be shaken when the noise returns. And the noise will return. The season will turn. The breakthrough will come. And when it does, you will understand with a clarity that only comes from having waited, why every moment of the silence was necessary, why every day of the underground was preparation, and why the God who went quiet for a season did so not because He had forgotten you, but because He was building something in you that required the silence to be built. You are still here. You have stayed through the silence, through the wait, through the paradox of being called while feeling broken, and through the wilderness that Elijah walked before the still small voice came. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, still pressing in, is itself a declaration. It is a declaration that something in you refuses to give up on what God has placed inside you. Something in you keeps showing up, even when showing up costs more than you feel you have to give. And that something is not willpower. It is not discipline. It is not the strength of your own character, impressive as that character has proven to be through everything you have endured. That something is the grace of God, moving in you and through you and sustaining you in ways that go far beyond what you can explain or take credit for. Elijah did not walk 40 days in the wilderness on his own strength. The scripture is specific about this. It says he went in the strength of that meal. The bread and water that the angel brought him at the juniper tree was not just enough for that moment. It was enough for 40 days of walking through terrain that would have been impossible to cross on ordinary human resources. One encounter with divine provision carried him further than he could have imagined from the floor of his exhaustion. And the provision that God has placed in your path in the season, the words that have reached you, the community that surrounds you, the messages that keep finding you at exactly the right moment. These are not coincidences. They are bread for the journey. They are the provision that will carry you further than your current strength suggests is possible. And this community, this gathering of chosen ones who have found each other in this space, is part of that provision. You did not find this channel by accident. You did not stumble onto this message through some random sequence of clicks that had nothing to do with the intentionality of heaven. You were directed here. And the people who are gathered here around these messages, the ones who are listening alongside you right now, the ones who have been commenting and sharing and staying connected to this flow of anointing. They are your people. They are chosen ones too. They are people who understand the weight you carry because they carry a version of it themselves. They are people who know what it means to feel called and tired at the same time, to be full of purpose and yet standing in a season that looks nothing like the destiny they sense inside themselves. This is not a small thing. Community among the chosen is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. When Elijah told God that he was the only one left, that he alone had remained faithful, God corrected him gently but clearly. He said there were 7,000 in Israel who had not bowed to Baal, 7,000 chosen ones who were also standing, also enduring, also holding on in their own wildernesses without necessarily knowing that anyone else was doing the same. Elijah thought he was alone. He was not alone, and neither are you. The 7,000 are here. They are watching this alongside you. They are in the comments and in the community and in the quiet faithfulness of people who keep showing up, even when the showing up is hard. If this message has been bread for you today, if something in these words has touched the place in you that needed to be touched, if you have found in this space something that has helped you hold on, or helped you understand your season differently, or helped you feel less alone in the particular wilderness you are walking through, I want to ask you to do something that costs you nothing but time. Share this message, not because the numbers matter, not because reach is the goal, but because somewhere in your circle there is another chosen one who is lying under their own juniper tree right now, exhausted and afraid, and convinced that they are the only one left who still cares, who still believes, who still carries the weight of a calling they cannot quite explain. And they need this bread. They need to hear that the silence is not abandonment. They need to hear that the weariness does not disqualify them. They need to hear that God meets people exactly where they are, in the dirt, under the tree at the end of themselves, and he says, "Arise and eat because the journey is not over." You have the ability to be that angel for someone today, not with elaborate gestures or profound words of your own, but simply by pressing share and letting this message find the person it was also meant for. That one act of generosity could be the thing that keeps someone going through a night that would otherwise be too dark to navigate alone. Do not underestimate the power of that. Do not scroll past the opportunity to be part of what God is doing in someone else's life, simply because it seems like a small thing. The angel who came to Elijah did not preach a sermon. He touched him and offered bread. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for another person is simply make sure the right provision reaches them. And if this channel has become a place where you consistently find that provision, where you come back again and again, because something here speaks to the part of you that other spaces do not reach, I want to invite you to become a regular part of this community in a more intentional way. Subscribing takes one moment, and it ensures that you will not miss what is coming next. Because what is being built here is not a collection of individual messages. It is a body of work that is meant to be received in sequence, each message building on the one before it, each section of the journey deepening what was established in the previous one. And do not want to miss a step in the journey you have already come this far on. Liking this video is also a simple act with a significance beyond the number it adds to a counter. It is a way of saying that this matters. It is a way of telling the algorithms that direct content toward people who need it, that this kind of message deserves to find more chosen ones who are waiting in their own silences for a word that speaks directly to where they actually are. Every like is a small act of service to someone, you will never meet who needs to hear what you have already heard today. And that is a beautiful thing to be part of. For those of you who feel led to go further, who want to sow into the continuation of this work in a more tangible way, there is a link in the description and in the pinned comment that makes that possible. This channel exists because of the faithfulness of people who believe in what is being built here. People who understand that anointed content does not create itself, that reaching chosen ones who are scattered across the world and waiting in their own wildernesses requires resources, time, and dedication. If you are in a position to give, even a small amount, know that it goes directly into the continuation of this work. And if you are not in that position right now, know that your presence here, your faithful listening, your sharing, and your community engagement are equally valuable. There is no hierarchy of contribution in the kingdom. The widow's 2 coins were noticed by the same eyes that noticed the large donations of the wealthy. What matters is the heart behind the offering, not the size of it. What is being built here is for you. It is for the chosen ones who need a space where their calling is taken seriously, where their weariness is understood, where the silence they are standing in is given a context that makes it bearable, and where the God who chose them from before they were born is proclaimed with the clarity and the power that his choosing deserves. You belong here. You have always belonged here. And the fact that you found this space is not the end of something. It is the beginning of a deeper movement into everything that God has been preparing you for. Stay connected. Keep listening. Keep sharing the bread with others who are hungry. And know that every time you return to this space, you are returning to a place that was built with you in mind by someone who understands the weight of the calling you carry and who believes with everything they have that the God who chose you is faithful to complete what he started. The journey is not over. In fact, the most significant parts of it are still ahead, and you are going to want to be present for every step of what comes next. The enemy does not waste his energy on people who pose no threat to his agenda. This is something that the chosen one needs to understand, not as a theological concept, but as a lived and personal reality. Because once you understand it, everything about the intensity of what you have been facing begins to make a different kind of sense. The warfare that has been directed at your life, the resistance that has shown up at every significant threshold, the opposition that seems to escalate precisely when you are on the verge of something important. None of it is random. None of it is indiscriminate. It is targeted. It is specific. And the specificity of it is itself a revelation about who you are and what you carry. Think about this carefully. Darkness does not organize itself against ordinary things. It does not spend its resources attacking what poses no danger to its plans. A lion does not hunt what cannot feed it. A storm does not gather its full force against something that would not be worth destroying. And the enemy of your soul does not deploy the level of opposition that you have been experiencing against someone who was never going to amount to anything significant in the kingdom of God. The very intensity of what has come against you is the clearest and most undeniable evidence of the greatness that is inside you. The attack is the testimony. The warfare is the proof. And if you can shift your perspective even slightly, from seeing the opposition as evidence of your weakness to seeing it as evidence of your threat level, everything changes. Elijah understood this in a way that most people do not fully appreciate when they read his story. The opposition that came against him did not come from ordinary sources. It came from Jezebel, a woman who represented one of the most powerful and organized forces of spiritual darkness in his generation. She did not send a casual threat. she sent a sworn declaration that within 24 hours she would end his life. And the reason her threat landed with such devastating force on a man who had just called fire from heaven is precisely because Elijah understood what she represented. He knew that the level of darkness gathering against him was proportional to the level of threat he represented to everything she was building. He was not being attacked because he was insignificant. He was being attacked because he was the most significant spiritual force standing between the plans of darkness and the people of God in his generation. And you are standing in a similar position right now, even if it does not feel that way from where you are. The opposition in your life is not a sign that God has removed his hand from you. It is a sign that the enemy has recognized something in you that you may not yet have fully recognized in yourself. There is something in you that darkness finds threatening. There is a gift, a calling, an anointing, a capacity for influence and impact that has been placed inside you by the God who chose you, and the enemy has been aware of it, in some cases, far longer than you have. He has been working against it since before you fully understood what it was, and the history of resistance in your life, when you look at it through this lens, begins to read not as a story of someone who could not catch a break, but as a story of someone who has been carrying something so significant that darkness has been trying to stop it from the beginning. This is why the attacks have been so personal. This is why the opposition has known exactly where to press to cause the most damage. This is why the warfare has not been generic, but has targeted the specific areas of your life that are most directly connected to your calling, your relationships, your sense of identity, your confidence in what God has said about you, your ability to believe in yourself enough to step into what you have been called to. The enemy is not guessing. He has been studying you. He knows your assignment, and he has been strategically working to convince you that you are not who God says you are before you fully step into the territory that God has prepared for you. But here is what the enemy cannot do, no matter how sophisticated his strategy or how long he has been working against you. He cannot change what God has established. He cannot revoke a calling that was set in place before the foundation of the world. He cannot undo a covenant that was sealed by blood older and more powerful than anything he has access to. He can create interference. He can manufacture confusion. He can send Jezebels and oppositions and seasons of silence and moments of crushing discouragement. But he cannot reach the thing that matters most. He cannot touch the seal of God on your life. He cannot access the place where your identity is written, the place where your name was recorded before you were born, the place where the assignment was inscribed that no weapon formed against you has ever been able to permanently destroy. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 31 carries these words: "If God is for us, who can be against us? Not who will try, not who will come, because the enemy will try, the opposition will come. The warfare will continue to be real and sometimes overwhelming in its intensity. But the question is not whether anyone can come against you. The question is whether anyone who comes against you can ultimately succeed against the God who is for you." And the answer to that question is a resounding and unshakable no. No weapon, no strategy, no organized darkness, no personal Jezebel, no season of opposition, however long or however intense, can succeed against the purpose of the God who chose you before you were formed and sealed you with a covenant that has never been broken. Elijah survived Jezebel, not because he was stronger than her, or because he had a better strategy, or because he managed to pull himself together and overcome his fear through sheer determination. He survived because the God who called him was more committed to his survival than the enemy was to his destruction. And the same is true of you. God's commitment to your survival, to your completion, to the fulfillment of what He placed inside you when He chose you is greater than anything that has come against you or anything that will come against you in the days ahead. This is not wishful thinking. This is covenant reality. And covenant reality does not shift based on how the battle looks from where you are standing in the middle of it. There is something else that the intensity of your warfare reveals that I want you to hold on to carefully. It reveals that you are close. The enemy does not escalate his opposition against chosen ones who are moving away from their destiny. He escalates it against chosen ones who are moving toward it. The increase in pressure, the sudden appearance of new obstacles just when you thought you had cleared the previous ones. The timing of attacks that seem to come precisely when you are on the edge of something significant. All of it is evidence, not that you are losing ground, but that you are gaining it. The warfare intensifies at the threshold, and the fact that what you are facing right now feels more intense than what you have faced before is a strong indication that the threshold you are approaching is one of the most significant ones of your life. You are not being destroyed by what is coming against you. You are being refined by it. The pressure that the enemy intends for your destruction is being used by God for your preparation. The opposition that was designed to push you backward is being redirected by the sovereignty of God to push you deeper into the character, the faith, the resilience, and the unshakable knowing of who you are that your next season is going to require. The enemy is working against you. God is working all of it together for you. And the difference between those two trajectories is the difference between a story that ends in defeat and a story that ends in the kind of glory that only comes from having walked through fire and emerged not consumed but purified. You are a chosen one in the middle of a battle that you were always going to win. Not because you are the strongest fighter, but because you fight under a banner that darkness has never and will never overcome. The light you carry is not yours to protect, it is God's to defend. And He has never lost a battle on behalf of someone He chose. And that light, the light that darkness finds so threatening, the light that has drawn opposition and warfare and resistance throughout every significant season of your life, that light is not dimming. It has never dimmed. It has been pressed. It has been challenged. It has been surrounded by circumstances designed to extinguish it. But it has not gone out, because the source of it is not in you. The source of it is in the God who placed it there before you were born. And that source has no off switch that the enemy can reach. What you carry is inextinguishable. And as you move into the next movement of this journey, I want you to shift your gaze from the warfare behind you to the evidence in front of you. Because the proof of your unbreakable covenant is not found only in the battles you have survived. It is found in every faithful step you have taken since. Every step you have taken in faith, even the ones that felt small, even the ones that trembled, even the ones that were taken in the dark, with no visible confirmation that the ground beneath you was solid. Every single one of those steps has been recorded. Not by algorithms, not by the opinions of people around you, not by the visible results that the world uses to measure whether something is working or not. They have been recorded by heaven, and heaven's record of your faithfulness is the most accurate and the most complete account of your life that exists anywhere in any form. It misses nothing. It overlooks nothing. It discards nothing that you offered in sincerity, no matter how small it appeared from where you were standing when you offered it. This is the thing about faith that the world cannot understand, and that even the chosen one sometimes forgets in the middle of a hard season. Faith does not require visibility to be real. Faith does not require results to be valid. Faith does not require the confirmation of circumstances to carry weight in the economy of heaven. In fact, the faith that moves most powerfully in the unseen realm is almost always the faith that has the least visible support in the natural world. It is the faith that says yes when everything around it is saying no. It is the faith that keeps going when every external indicator suggests that stopping would be the reasonable choice. It is the faith that holds the promise when the promise looks nothing like the present reality. That is the faith that Elijah carried under the juniper tree. Not the faith of the mountain, not the faith of the fire, but the faith that got up off the ground when it had every reason to stay down. That faith, quiet and exhausted, and still moving, is the faith that heaven finds most remarkable. And you have been carrying that faith. You may not have called it that. You may have called it stubbornness or desperation, or simply not knowing what else to do. But from heaven's perspective, the choice you have made again and again to keep trusting, to keep showing up, to keep believing in something you cannot fully see or touch or prove to the people around you, that choice is faith. And it has been building something in the unseen that is far larger and far more significant than anything you have been able to observe from your current vantage point. Elijah's faithfulness in the wilderness was not spectacular. It was not the kind of faith that makes for a dramatic story when you are in the middle of it. It was the faith of eating when the angel provided bread. It was the faith of drinking when the water was there. It was the faith of rising and walking when the direction was given, even when the destination was 40 days away and the terrain was wilderness the whole way through. It was ordinary, unglamorous, one foot in front of the other. Faithfulness. And it was exactly what God needed from him in that moment. Not a repeat of the fire. Not another spectacular demonstration of power. Just the willingness to get up, receive what was provided, and keep moving in the direction he was given. Your faithfulness in this season has looked the same way. It has not been spectacular. It has not been the kind of story that gets told at the beginning of a testimony when everything is already resolved and the ending is known. It is the middle of the story, the part that is the hardest to tell because you are still in it, because the ending has not been written yet in visible terms, because the gap between where you are and where you sense you are going still feels wide enough to be frightening. But the faithfulness you have shown in the middle, in the unglamorous, unspectacular, one step at a time middle of your story, is the very thing that is being woven into the foundation of everything that comes next. There is a moment in Elijah's story that I want to draw your attention to because it speaks directly to where you are right now. After God spoke to him in the still small voice, after the question and the honest answer and the gentle redirection, God gave Elijah specific instruction. He told him to anoint Hazael as king over Syria, to anoint Jehu as king over Israel, and to anoint Elisha as his own successor. 3 specific acts, 3 specific people, 3 specific assignments that extended the impact of Elijah's calling far beyond his own lifetime. And here is what is significant about that. Elijah, the man who had been lying under a tree asking to die, was given assignments that would shape the course of an entire nation for generations. God did not scale back the assignment because of the wilderness. He expanded it. The man who went into the wilderness thinking his story was over came out of it with more purpose and more specific direction than he had carried going in. And that is what God does with the chosen ones who stay faithful in the wilderness. He does not bring them out with a reduced version of their calling. He brings them out with a clarified and often expanded version of it. The wilderness does not shrink the destiny. It defines it more precisely. It removes the vague and the peripheral, and the things that were never really part of the core assignment. And what is left is cleaner and clearer and more specific than what existed before the wilderness began. You are going to come out of this season knowing more precisely what you are called to than you did when you entered it. The confusion is being burned away. The clarity is being established. And the assignment that is waiting for you on the other side of this is more defined than anything you have held before. The book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 36, carries these words. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. Endurance, not perfection, not the absence of fear or doubt or weariness. Endurance, the consistent faithful, one step at a time, choosing to remain in the will of God, even when the will of God leads through terrain that is hard and dry and seemingly without landmark or destination. You have been enduring every day of this season that you have chosen to stay rather than run, to trust rather than abandon, to believe rather than surrender to the evidence of your circumstances. You have been practicing the endurance that this verse describes, and the promise attached to that endurance is not vague. It is specific. When you have done the will of God, you will receive what is promised, not might receive, not possibly depending on circumstances, will receive. The promise is certain, the timing is God's, but the receiving is guaranteed for the one who endures. Right now, in the comments below this message, I want you to type these 2 words, still standing. 2 words that declare where you are after everything that has come against you. Still standing, not standing perfectly, not standing without scars or weariness or the marks of the battle you have been in, but standing, still here, still in it, still choosing faith over fear and trust over evidence, and the promise of God over the appearance of your circumstances. Type still standing and let that declaration go out from you today as a seed sown into the next season of your life. Let it be the words that heaven hears from you in this moment. Let it be your testimony before the testimony is fully written. Still standing because you are, and that is more powerful than you know. The enemy looked at everything he sent against you, and he expected you to fall. He calculated the weight of the opposition, and he measured it against what he could see of your strength, and he concluded that you would not make it through. He was wrong. He has always been wrong about you, because he calculated your strength without accounting for the God who is your strength. He measured your capacity without factoring in the one whose capacity has no limit. He looked at you and saw what you were, made of without seeing who made you. And the God who made you has never once been surprised by where you are right now. He knew this season was coming. He knew what it would cost you, and he chose you for it anyway, because he also knew what it would produce in you. And he knew that what it would produce was worth the price of the process. You are already walking in the proof of your unbreakable covenant. Every day you have stayed is proof. Every morning you have gotten up is proof. Every prayer you have whispered with nothing left to pray with is proof. Every time you have chosen to believe when believing was the harder option, that is proof. And the proof is accumulating. It is building. It is becoming a testimony that is going to speak to people in rooms you have not yet entered, in seasons you have not yet reached, in conversations that have not yet happened. Your faithfulness now is producing fruit that you will not fully see until the season turns. But it is real, it is growing, and it will not be wasted. There is something being built in the waiting that you cannot see from where you are standing. And the invisibility of it is not a sign that it does not exist. It is a sign that it is too large, too carefully constructed, and too significant to be revealed before it is complete. God does not show you the blueprint while the building is still under construction, not because He is hiding something from you, but because the partial revelation of an incomplete work would not give you an accurate picture of what is actually being built. You would look at the scaffolding and the exposed framework and the disorder that is always present in the middle of construction, and you would draw conclusions about the finished structure that would be entirely wrong. So He covers it. He works in the hidden place. He builds in the silence and the waiting and the seasons that look from the outside like nothing is happening. And then, when the work is complete, He removes the covering, and what is revealed takes your breath away. This is the pattern of heaven. It has always been the pattern of heaven. And Elijah's story carries one of the most breathtaking expressions of this pattern that Scripture contains. Because Elijah's story does not end in the wilderness. It does not end under the juniper tree. It does not end in the cave at Horeb, or in the still small voice, or even in the anointing of Elisha. Elijah's story ends in a whirlwind. It ends with a chariot of fire and horses of fire descending from heaven, and Elijah being taken up into heaven in a whirlwind without ever experiencing death. The man who asked God to take his life because he had had enough was eventually taken by God into glory in the most spectacular departure that any human being has ever made from this earth. The one who thought his story was over at the juniper tree had the most extraordinary ending that heaven could design. And I need you to hold that image in your mind as you consider your own story right now, because the distance between where Elijah was under that tree and where he ended up in that whirlwind is the distance between where you feel you are right now and where God is taking you. It is an impossible distance from a human perspective. It is an overwhelming distance when you look at it from the floor of your exhaustion. But it is not impossible from heaven's perspective. It is not overwhelming from the perspective of the God who designed the ending before He authored the beginning. He knew where Elijah was going when He sent the angel with bread. He knew the whirlwind was coming when He asked, "What are you doing here?" And He knew that every step of the wilderness journey was not a detour from the destination, but the most direct route to it. He knows where you are going to. He knew it before you were born. He knew it when He chose you. He knew it through every hard season and every moment of confusion and every night when you could not feel His presence and every morning when you got up anyway. He has always known. And the ending He has designed for your story is not diminished by the difficulty of the middle. It is not reduced by the length of the waiting. It is not scaled back because of the intensity of the opposition. Ending is intact. It has always been intact. And it is more magnificent than anything you have yet been able to imagine from the vantage point of the process you are currently in. The waiting is not empty. This is perhaps the most important thing I can say to you in this section, and I want you to receive it not as a comforting platitude, but as a concrete spiritual reality. The waiting is not empty. It is full. It is full of construction that is happening at a level you cannot see. It is full of preparation that is being done in the unseen realm on your behalf. It is full of the movement of God toward your life that is already in motion, already gaining momentum, already closer than it appears from where you are standing. Heaven has been building something for you in this waiting, and the thing being built is not small. It required the waiting. It required the silence. It required the wilderness. Not because God is inefficient or because He enjoys making His chosen ones wait, but because what He is assembling for your life is so precisely fitted to who you are, so carefully calibrated to the specific shape of your calling, that it required the exact process you have been through to prepare both you and it to receive each other. Think about what was being built during the years of Elijah's ministry that only became visible at the end of his life. The relationship with Elisha that began as a simple act of throwing a mantle over a plowing farmer eventually produced a successor who would carry a double portion of Elijah's anointing and perform twice as many miracles. What looked like a single act of obedience in the moment was actually the planting of a seed that would multiply beyond anything Elijah could have calculated. The impact of his faithfulness extended through Elisha and through the generations that Elisha influenced, far beyond the boundaries of Elijah's own lifetime and ministry. And he did not get to see most of it from this side of eternity. He was building something that was bigger than his ability to observe it. You are building something that is bigger than your ability to observe it too. The faithfulness you have practiced in this season, the prayers you have prayed, the trust you have maintained, the choices you have made to keep going when stopping was the easier option. All of it is producing an inheritance that extends beyond what you can currently measure. It is producing fruit in people around you who have been watching you hold on without knowing how significant your example is to them. It is producing character in you, the produced thing that makes you capable of carrying what God is about to bring into your life. It is producing a testimony that will one day reach people you have never met and give them the courage to keep going in their own seasons of wilderness and waiting. Nothing in this season has been wasted. Not a single day, not a single tear, not a single prayer that felt like it went nowhere, not a single act of faithfulness that seemed too small to matter. Heaven has been collecting all of it. Every piece has been placed into the construction of something that is being built for your life, and through your life, that is so much larger than the current season suggests. And the God who has been building it is the most precise and the most faithful architect that has ever existed. He does not leave projects unfinished. He does not start something he does not intend to complete. He does not call someone to an assignment and then fail to provide everything required for the fulfillment of that assignment. The book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6 carries these words: "He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ." Will bring it to completion, not might, not hopes to, not intends to if circumstances allow will. This is a declaration of divine certainty over your life, from the mouth of the God who does not speak uncertainty. What he began in you, the good work that was initiated before you were born and that has been in process through every season of your life, including this one, will be brought to completion. The construction will be finished. The building will be revealed. The whirlwind will come. And what is unveiled, when the covering is removed, will be worth every day of the waiting that preceded it. You are not at the end of your story. You are in the part of your story that makes the ending meaningful. You are in the part that gives the conclusion its weight and its glory. A story that goes from ease to ease has no depth. A story that moves from strength to strength without passing through weakness has no testimony. But a story that carries a chosen one from the floor of a wilderness through 40 days of provision to a whirlwind of glory. That is the kind of story that changes the people who hear it. That is the kind of story that gives other chosen ones who are lying under their own juniper trees the courage to eat the bread, drink the water, arise, and keep walking. Your story is that kind of story. It has always been that kind of story. And the chapters that are still being written, the ones that are being constructed right now, in the waiting and the silence and the visible work of heaven on your behalf, those are going to be the chapters that define everything. The best of what God has prepared for you has not yet been revealed. The most significant movements of your destiny are still ahead. And the God who has been faithful through every chapter you have already lived is more than faithful enough to complete what He started in you. Heaven has been building something in your waiting, and it is almost ready. You have come to the end of something today, and the beginning of something else entirely. That is always how it works with the chosen. The ending of one chapter is never just a conclusion. It is a doorway. And the fact that you have stayed through every word of this journey, through the wait and the wilderness and the silence and the warfare and the waiting, is itself a declaration that you are ready to walk through what is on the other side of that door. You did not come here by accident. You did not stay by accident. And you are not leaving this moment unchanged because something has been spoken over your life today that has gone deeper than your mind. It has reached the place where decisions are made, where identity is held, where the covenant between you and the God who chose you is kept alive, even in the seasons when everything around you argues that it should have expired by now. Elijah's story ends in a whirlwind, but before the whirlwind came, there was a walk. Elijah and Elisha were walking together, and as they walked, Elijah asked his successor what he wanted, and Elisha said, "Let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." A double portion. Not what Elijah had carried, twice what Elijah had carried. And Elijah said, "You have asked a hard thing, but if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so." And Elisha watched. He kept his eyes open. He stayed present and attentive through the very last moments of his teacher's time on earth. And when the chariot of fire appeared and the whirlwind took Elijah up, Elisha saw it. He saw it, and the double portion came upon him exactly as had been promised. There is something in that exchange that speaks directly to where you are right now at the end of this message. The double portion came to the one who stayed, the one who kept walking alongside, the one who refused to be distracted or discouraged or turned aside by what was happening around him. The double portion did not mums to the ones who had stopped watching or who had gone back to their own concerns. It came to the one who remained present and attentive through the very last moment. And you are that one today. You stayed, you watched, you remained present through the weight of this journey. And the double portion that God has been preparing for your life is closer than it has ever been. Before we close this journey together, I want to do something that feels right and necessary for this moment. I want to pray over you, not as a formality, not as a religious conclusion to a piece of content, but as a genuine and sincere act of intercession for the specific chosen one who has been listening to these words today, the one who is tired and still trusting, the one who is called and still in the process of becoming, the one who woke up this morning and proved again that their faith is unshakable, even when it does not feel that way from the inside. So if you are willing, wherever you are right now, whether you are sitting or standing or driving or lying in the dark, I invite you to receive these words as a prayer spoken directly over your life. Father, I bring before you the chosen one who has stayed through this entire message. You know their name. You know their address. You know the specific weight they have been carrying, and the specific silence they have been standing in, and the specific wilderness they have been walking through. You know what this season has cost them, and you know what it has been building in them. And I ask right now that you confirm in their spirit everything that has been spoken over them today. Let them feel, in this moment, even if just for a moment, that they are not forgotten, that they are not disqualified, that the covenant you made with them before they were born is still fully intact and fully in force. Let the bread reach them. Let the water satisfy the thirst that nothing else has been able to touch. Let the still small voice find them in whatever silence they are standing in, and speak with the kind of clarity and intimacy that can only come from you. And let the whirlwind that is being prepared for their life come in your perfect time, in your perfect way, carrying them into everything that you have been building in the waiting. In the name that is above every name, over every opposition, over every Jezebel, over every season of silence and every juniper tree moment, let it be so. And so it is. That prayer has gone out over your life. And what heaven releases in response to sincere intercession does not return empty. You are a chosen one. You have always been a chosen one. And you are leaving this moment sealed with something that the enemy cannot remove and circumstances cannot diminish. You are sealed with the knowledge that God saw you this morning when you woke up tired and still chose to keep going. He saw you when you showed up here. He heard every silent prayer you whispered before this message found you. And He is responding. He is always responding. His response may not look like what you expected. It may not arrive in the form you requested or on the timeline you proposed, but it is in motion. It has been in motion, and it will arrive exactly when it needs to arrive, carrying exactly what you need, in exactly the form that your next season requires. If this journey has meant something to you, if these words have been bread for the road you are on, I want to ask you one more time to share this message with someone who needs it. Someone who is under their own juniper tree right now. Someone who needs to hear that the silence is not abandonment. Someone who needs to be reminded that the warfare they are facing is proof of the greatness they are carrying. Press share and let the bread find them. And if this channel has become a consistent source of provision for your journey, subscribe so that you do not miss what is coming next. Like this message as an act of generosity toward the chosen ones who have not yet found it. And if you feel led to sow into the continuation of this work, the link to do so is in the description and in the pinned comment. Every contribution of any size goes directly into building more of what you received here today for the chosen ones who are still waiting to find it. You are unshakable. You are chosen. You proved it this morning, and you will prove it again tomorrow. Keep going. The whirlwind is coming. And so we arrive at the place where words must give way to the living of what has been received. Everything spoken in this journey was spoken for you, about you, and over you, because you were always the one it was meant for. The chosen one who woke up tired and still showed up. The one who carried the weight and kept walking. The one who stayed under the message the way Elisha stayed beside Elijah, all the way to the end, watching for the whirlwind. You have been seen today. You have been named. You have been prayed over, and you are going back into your life carrying something you did not have when you arrived here. Carry it carefully. Carry it boldly. And when the season turns and the breakthrough comes and the building is finally revealed in all its completed glory, remember this moment. Remember that you stayed. Remember that the God who chose you was faithful through the wilderness and the silence and the waiting. And let that remembrance be the testimony that gives another chosen one the courage to keep going in their own season of becoming. You are not the end of this story. You are the continuation of it. Go and be the whirlwind in someone else's wilderness. There is a moment that comes after every significant encounter with the presence of God where the world looks the same on the outside, but you know that something on the inside has permanently shifted. You are in that moment right now. The room around you has not changed. The circumstances waiting for you beyond this message have not disappeared. The challenges that existed before you pressed play are still there in their various forms, asking the same questions they have always asked, demanding the same answers, occupying the same spaces in your life that they occupied an hour ago. But you are not the same person who pressed play. Something has moved in you. Something has been settled that was unsettled before. Something has been named that was nameless before. And named things lose a measure of their power to frighten you, because you can no longer be ambushed by something you now know how to identify. You know who you are. You are a chosen one. You know what you carry. You carry a frequency that darkness finds threatening and heaven finds precious. You know where you are. You are in a season of construction, of preparation, of the invisible work of a faithful God who builds in the hidden place before he reveals in the open. And you know where you are going. You are going toward a whirlwind, toward a completion, toward the fulfillment of everything that was written about your life before you had a name. Go gently into the rest of your day. Go with the awareness that you are accompanied. Go with the settled confidence of someone who has been reminded of what they already knew at the deepest level but needed to hear spoken out loud one more time. You are chosen. You are sealed. You are unshakable. And heaven is watching every step with anticipation.